Welcome back to Trading 360. I'm Diane King Hall. Time now for the big three stocks, 3 charts, and 3 trades. Rick Ducat will take us through the trades, and here charts rather. And here to take us through the trades, we've got Charles Moon, Senior Market Strategist, Equities Prosper Trading Academy. It's great to see both of you, Charles. Before we dive into the tickers on your list, let's start out with I want to get a big picture take on the market today. We had this risk-off move on Friday. Seems like everybody's jumping back in the pool today. What's your thought?
Yeah, and again, I think that the market was looking for a reason to kind of go risk off. We've been slowly just chopping, grinding, low volume move here, higher over the last 2 weeks. And, people had a lot of concerns about buying in terms of valuation. So they're looking for these pullbacks. They're looking for any pullback. And you could see that even just a small 1% pullback has netted an immediate rally. We're trading above, recent highs. We're making this push towards the all-time highs. And, even with conflict news outside of the United States joining this conflict, this is a risk-on environment. We take that one little, pullback and it's instantly being bought up very aggressively. Volume is really coming in. And this is in anticipation of the FOMC meeting this week, which is widely believed that the FOMC is going to stand still. So it's certainly not going to be driven by FOMC policy, but it's purely driven really just by retail demand in the near term.
Speaking of a rally, AMD, big rally today, up more than 9% right now. Talk to us about your view here.
Yeah, so, this is a stock that's been really steadily coming off the lows. There's been a lot of news. Amazon made a major investment into this stock. And more importantly, they're starting to chip away at, NVIDIA's stronghold of the AI GPU market. And that's what's really intriguing here. For me, with AMD's price performance, if they close above 124.50 and open above this level tomorrow, it could really signal to the market that it's really ready to explode. And I think a lot of retail investors and institutions have been looking for a move like this in AMD. So I believe that they could take out 130, 138 as a short-term target, and that 124.5 has to be that floor. That's a really big threshold, in my opinion. This is a stock that's been downtrending for a full year and finally starting to show real signs of life. So if they can maintain this momentum, not only 138 is in the picture, this is a stock that really should be up towards 160 when all things are said and done.
Okay, should be up towards 160. All right, then, Rick, that tees you up. Tell us what you're paying attention to when it comes to the chart for AMD.
Yes, much like Charles said, this is a stock that really took a bit of a beating here and has since perhaps started to turn a corner. We can see that price bottomed out here, 76.48. We can also see that this was at the end of a rather lengthy downward sloping channel between our 2 blue dashed lines here. But now we can see price has pushed above not only the upper boundary of this channel, but also our 2 moving averages that we follow here, our yellow 21-day and orange 63-day exponential moving averages. Now we can see that price is also pushing above the 125 level, quite close to what Charles was saying, 124. That I had my eye on that level because it was the high after a gap down that was retested again. That's also right about where we have our purple 252-day exponential moving average. So an important level to hang on to for the bulls. We can see now that RSI is still in a downtrend, but we are very close to invalidating that downward sloping red trend line there. That would be another more positive sign for bullish traders. In the shorter term, we can look for some potential resistance at our volume node up here, just beyond this 132 level. That represents old lows based on closing prices and then highs. And then we have our volume node near about 140 to the upside. Eventually, around 160s, right about here. That was the low point before we had a gap down as well. So that's another level that also caught my eye.
Okay, so that's a level that caught your eye. Charles, final thought on AMD and your approach here before we move on to your next trade.
Yeah, we've seen Micron, we've seen AVGO really take off, and we've seen obviously the big buyers coming back into NVIDIA. AMD has always been that, especially in the last year, it's been that highly desirable name by retail traders that just hasn't been able to benefit to the upside. I think now is the time. It is definitely on watch here at this 125 level if it could hold.
Okay, AMD looking for potential breakout here. Let's talk about the next one on your list. Celsius has been in a lot of focus for us today. It's up more than 6%. Had the analyst upgrading its price target. The one thing about this one, though, if you look at it year to date versus year 1 year view, it looks very different. So, Charles, what's your thesis here?
Yeah, and again, with this market in this just ascending, trend right now, it seems like the market is searching for a lot of fair value opportunities with great upside. So Celsius is one of those names where it actually led to a really nice technical breakout through this $40 level. It spiked up to 45, it pulled back to 40, and really holding the old resistance as support is a really bullish sign, in my opinion. And now we're in this open space where there isn't much technical resistance. And for me, when stocks start hitting this upward trajectory on these breakouts with a lot of open space, the momentum is what we need to really carry forward. So we're seeing a lot of this momentum today. I really think that this is a stock that could push up towards this 49 price and eventually settle somewhere between 50 and 58 in the near term. I think this is a forgotten stock that's starting to come to life. And those retail traders that used to love this name, they used to actively trade this name, should start garnering some interest as it starts peering up on these gainers lists. Holding that 40 was a really critical moment for Celsius. It could have easily unraveled and pulled right back into the mid 30s and if not lower, but they're really starting to outperform a lot of their peers. And frankly, for me, this is one of those retail names that could garner that momentum. I'm looking for that breakout near term towards 50 and 55.
Yeah, look, well, that's you have some in the sell side analyst community who share a similar view to Jay on Celsius. TD Cowen, they've got a $55 price target on it, and recently, in recent days, you have some boosting of the price target in that 50 range as well. So, Rick, what do you pay attention to when it comes to the chart for Celsius?
I always like when a beverage company has the cup and handle type price pattern. It just makes nice thematic sense to me here. But what I mean by that is you can see that we had an old point here, this 44 level, a red line here that represented a low point and then subsequent high point. Then we have this very gradual bottoming out here, culminating with these lows near 2110. Now we have started to round off and rise once again. We have hit resistance near that 44 level, which gives us the handle part of the cup here. You can see it makes like a coffee cup type shape. This hit of resistance, then a brief pullback. Then the hope would be for the bullish crowd that the trend would continue on to the upside there. So we can see as well that 40 level around 39.40 also caught my eye right about there. That's kind of the general area Charles was talking about that price broke above and has since held on to. You can see our 21-day exponential moving average in yellow lines up around that general area near 39.80 or so right now. RSI also did invalidate this red downward sloping trend line and is about to push above that overbought area, typically regarded as a sign of strength in a trending market if that were to happen. Now, when we look at our standard deviation channels and volume profile studies, we can see that the heavy trading volume is all down here at the bottom part of the cup. So a rise above that heavy volume, heavy trading area here often is regarded as a sign that we formed some kind of important low point there. Not saying it's going to hold if we do retest it, just saying that's often how it's interpreted here. So support near 33, that's where the volume is the most heavy in the near term. Resistance near 44 and then 46 based on this small volume node and our +2 standard deviation channel in that general area.
I like the point that, Rick, you made about when you notice the cup and handle pattern. So, Charles, final thought on Celsius before we get to your last trade.
Yeah, I definitely would keep this on your radar if it hasn't been. And again, that 40 threshold is important. As long as we remain above that level, I believe that the marching orders for Celsius is for $50 and hopefully around 55 in the near term.
All right, let's talk about the last trade on your list. It's a company that recently went public here at the New York Stock Exchange. Circle, ticker CRCL, had a monster debut, up more than 150%. It's the biggest, essentially, crypto IPO since Coinbase in 2021. What's your view on this one?
Yeah, this is unbelievable. What a debut. Clear upside momentum. And it's not just retail, it's definitely institutional. People are buying into this name. Obviously this coincides with the recent rally in Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin doesn't slow down, then Circle won't either. this is one of those names where I was watching really closely right around this, I would say right around 138, 140, whatever their recent spike high is that they pulled back from. They just took that level out today. They're showing a lot of strength, and this momentum right now really has sustained. So for me, with this kind of momentum that we've seen in another stock, CoreWeave, where it took out their IPO high and ended up just doubling up in price and then some, Circle has that opportunity to really, really get up into that $200 range very quickly. Now, it actually won't take much based on how actively the stock has been traded and it's moving on a daily basis. And for me, the threshold that I'm watching right now is right around that 145, 140. There isn't much of a technical base. This is a purely momentum driven type of opportunity. But again, when it coincides with the crypto market making a move and retail traders, and then of course this market moving higher, this is one of those stocks that, you know, we could really see just triple up in price, quadruple up in price. We've seen other, you know, highly demanded IPOs do this before. We may not have, you know, haven't seen it in quite some time, but this reminds me of when Snowflake had that really highly anticipated IPO, spiked all the way up to that $400 plus price level and then retracted. I expect Circle to do something similar, maybe not all the way to $400. I think that $200 threshold is going to be really key. You know, if they break beyond, obviously the momentum can carry, but I think in the near term that should be a realistic target, and it could happen as soon as next week.
Oh, interesting. I mean, the stock up more than 20%, so continuing to shoot higher. To your point, Rick, not a lot of time on this chart. What are you noticing in terms of the pattern so far?
Yeah, we have to use a bit of a different approach than our conventional technical setup we use. But, you know, technical analysis is fractal in its nature. It works you come to the same conclusions regardless of the time frame. What I mean by that here is that you can see that just like on a daily chart, though, this is an hourly chart since June 5th. We had a resistance area here and here and here. Then we broke above it with energy. We pushed to the upside. Notice as well, we kind of formed a similar bottom here and here as well. So a push to the upside from our range-bound area. 120 was that breakout point. So far, it's held on here. You can see also that price is traveling within the boundaries of a short-term upward channel here. And, you know, the less time that has passed since the patterns like these forms, the less significant they are. But I'm just pointing out what I see with what we have to work with here. RSI often, you know, doesn't really work quite the same on intraday charts here. It's looking back at the past 14-hour periods, but those include these post-market sessions here. So I almost didn't include it, but looking at the momentum here, pretty unusual to see such a strong overbought move when you have the typically slower aftermarket and post-market data here. So kind of speaking to the strength of the momentum as well that Charles was describing. Now, if we were to use our volume profile study as well, once again, not a ton of data, but we can see 116 here. That's a key point. That was the heavy trading area. You can see where volume starts to pick up again down here near about 127. That could be another area to watch. Our standard deviation channel study shows us that the move up has been fairly extreme here. We're at beyond 2 standard deviations from our line of best fit, which is our linear regression line here. But you can see potential resistance, maybe 176 in the very short term. It's a moving target, though. A lot can change very quickly with a name like this.
A lot can change quickly. We'll continue to watch this one. It made a monster debut. Shares still continuing to surge today. That's our Rick Ducat and Charles Moon of Prosper Trading Academy. Thank you both.